Hello, everyone. Welcome to our season 2 beginning of our Wheel of Time differences and watch through so we can talk about all the differences between the show and the book. I am joined by Christopher Navo, who is very familiar with the books. I am a newer reader to the book, so if you haven't joined us before, that's our dynamic here. I've read the first 3 books, and Chris has read all of them. So we like to have a little give and take on these episodes. If you're curious as to how this has worked in the past, our previous episodes are up on my channel, but we usually start by giving a ranking to the episode that we've watched. In this case, tonight, we are going to be discussing episodes 1 and 2 of season 2, but we will go in chronological order of which they came out. So out of 10, where would you rank episode 1?
Oh, yeah, this whole thing was just
We're off to a really good start.
it's really hard because I'm trying to accept the fact that they're just making something different from this.
Yeah, this is not Wheel of Time.
This is not Wheel of Time, and I was able to watch this episode twice before we met.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, I watched it. I watched twice last night, and then I watched episode 2 the second time this morning before I did my stuff. So
good on you.
I don't know. It's even if I didn't know the material, 4.
Okay. I think a 4 is generous.
Yeah. 3.54.
I'm probably in the realm of a 2.75 to 3, like somewhere in that vicinity. There's a lot to talk about.
I think, yeah. It just goes back to the fact that I'm trying to be an open mind with this because it is just something that they're just taking the base material and making something totally new with.
Yes,
but I do have some takes regardless.
I agree. So Bookborn does really great comparison videos of the show and the books as well. And she made a really good point today in a video stating that she feels the show should have been called The Tower. And I 100% agree, because this is really not about Wheel of Time, because Rand is like not in it.
Very secondary.
And it seems very focused on Tarvalin and the Aes Sedai in the Tower. But before we get into all of that, let's jump into our episode. But the episode actually did end up opening with the Dark Council, which is a clip that they had added to the end of season 1 that we've discussed, that you and I both liked this. I thought it was appropriate to then have it as the opening, because it is very similar to the opening of The Great Hunt, where we have the Dark Council, except the perspective is different. In that with The Great Hunt, we have it from the perspective of boars, and it seems that it's a much grander event with the number of people that are there.
I almost expected like a elaborate ball kind of thing, masquerade. Exactly. You know, everybody's wearing masks, something like that.
Because they don't want to give away who they are. Exactly. But there's little things about them that do give away who they are, similar to this scenario in which the nails and the ring and that kind of stuff. But I don't hate this opening of the first episode. This to me is probably the best. It's the first few minutes. So there's that. But one of the things that I did notice on this watch that I didn't catch when I watched it last time is that Ishmael, who from this moment on I will refer to as Ishi because I have a deep fondness for Ishi, says that he released me in the context of Rand, which my understanding was always that Ishmael was always out. Like, he was not secured in with the other Forsaken. So am I wrong in this?
I believe he was. I think he was very. They talk about these layers and
he was near
where
the
they
surface.
were located in the book. And I do believe he was sealed.
Okay, I didn't think he was, but that could be just my misinterpretation of that. In which case, what they're saying then makes sense, in which he released him.
Yeah, but I do believe he got out pretty early. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
and I do believe it's I they don't talk about him as he's like at a different level than the rest of the Forsaken, I feel like. Um, and because we always hear about, who's where and how they got out and all that.
Yeah.
And there was the reference guy that would talk about the who was higher up in getting out of the seals.
Right.
Obviously, Aguinar and Balthamol
Yes.
were the closest, but it aged Aguinar and it disfigured Balthamol. So
Right. And Ishi didn't have any of that just because he's like
yeah, but
so
he's
powerful.
like nuts though. He's a little more chaotically nuts
Yes.
in the books than he is in this very suave, almost taking the role of Robin, the Forsaken, because Robin is he's kind of the suave, good-looking Forsaken, at least in the books, kind of thing. So I think he's taking a little bit of that,
Okay.
which kind of makes me think that's probably one of the combos of Forsaken that they're
That they're
gonna
going to be doing.
doing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, but
Go ahead.
yeah, no, I liked it. I do like the fact they are making the Forsaken a little, at least the first ones we're getting introduced to. I like that they're making them a little more active, where
Okay.
they were more sidelined in the
Yes.
books until the very end of the chapters
Yes.
when they would confront a Forsaken. So I
Agreed.
do like that. This would be something normally in the books above his station. Like he wouldn't bother showing up. They would have a
Yeah,
middleman, lead these councils. So
definitely.
um, but I do appreciate that they included them. I kind of like that.
I agree. I will say the last real thing for this intro scene is that the Trollocs look substantially better than they did in episode 8 of season 1 because as we've discussed, that was terrible. These look appropriate.
Yeah,
So
this is
that's a
back
step up.
to, I think, more actual makeup. I think we're back to actual makeup rather than CGI, and it
CGI,
just
exactly.
shows that, I think you go back to this old school way of just putting people in makeup, and it's just
It's
this
gonna work. Yeah,
huge difference. Yeah,
exactly.
and it works because Trollocs used to have they have human DNA, so you can have
Mhm.
that a little bit of that human showing, like in the eyes. I like that. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I thought that was a good approach. They've gotten rid of the intro, it seems.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I thought it might have been just the first episode, and
I
then
thought
the
so
next.
too, but it seems like it's
Um,
gone. So I'm
I
confused.
guessing because it's too long,
I
and they
mean,
want to save
maybe
some time minutes. I guess.
it's possible.
So it's
Um,
just a bloop, and that's it.
yeah, which I mean is fine, whatever. At this point, I've given up kind of all hope really. So it's not a super, super big deal. But um one of the
Yeah.
things that then happens is our show opens and we see it's Moraine and she's in the middle of nowhere. So we now get a time jump. We know now that this is a time jump. And this is a conversation that you and I were having
Call it.
behind the scenes. And you definitely called that they were going to do a time jump. I was not entirely convinced. I said, I hope they don't because I would like to see the ramifications of what happened. But of course, they went with the time jump because that's the easier thing to do, I guess. And it
That's
can erase a
yeah.
lot of the decisions that they made, which
Part of
they
me
ended up
thinks
doing.
this was probably a good decision. I
It
think it
probably was.
might have just slowed down this whole. I was thinking about it. It's like, so we're not even going to discuss the fact that Laurel was stabbed. Everybody looked like they were dead on the ground,
Yeah. But everyone's fine now.
including some of the people that are part of season 2, like Uno.
Yes.
And but yeah, I kind of had a feeling they weren't going to even bother trying to explain that. Maybe if they have a Pat and Fane scene,
Yeah.
maybe they'll play that out from when he left Faldera to where he is presently. So
Agreed.
I'm gonna hold my breath on that, but we'll see if they do that because they haven't really. This is like one character they haven't really touched upon, and his scenes were pivotal in the books in the beginning with the being imprisoned and being questioned by not only like Egwene but
Yeah.
like other Aes Sedai and all that. And unfortunately, we didn't get that.
None of that, no. But we do get Moraine carrying a ton of water because we know that girlfriend likes a bath from the first season. So she's continued on that she really likes bathing in warm water and likes hard work. So that's fine. The thing is, though, that's quite different is that we are introduced to Varen in a new setting. So
Yes.
this is a deliberate change that they've made.
Yep.
In the book, in The Great Hunt, Moraine does venture off because she's trying to learn more about the Dragon Reborn, the Dark
Right.
One, how the whole thing is supposed to work collectively. And she ends up at a house with a green Aja, a brown Aja, and their warder.
Yep.
In
Yeah.
this scenario, they've made the brown Aja Varen, and Varen is not in this context in the story.
Right.
But
yeah. Aeolus is the brown, and they made her the green in this.
Yeah.
And then Varen is playing her sister, so they don't even have Vandene in this scenario.
No, they do
whatever. I'm okay. I don't
it's not
mind
the worst thing.
the switch. It's Vandene and Aeolus are minor characters, so
that to me is fine.
I thought it might have been a good introduction to Varen and how they included it. And I love that they did include Varen's warder, Thomas, so that was pretty cool too. So
it's interesting because Browns don't normally have warders.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that Varen is the one but she does have a warder in the books too.
She does. It's just normally when we see brown warders, it's like they're kind of used as someone to carry books.
Yeah, they're
rather
mules.
than
they're mules.
A warrior type figure, which Tomas is definitely from the end of this episode, like dude has been training, so I'm not super worried about him. But this is an interesting introduction for Varen. I don't dislike it, but I do find that they have played with her character a little bit from the book, and that Varen is not as jovial as they're making her seem.
Flighty.
Yes, she comes across as very flighty in the show especially I feel like for a brown, because
actually I was going to say she's more flighty in the books.
Oh, do you think so? Because I find she's more flighty.
I think she's more alert and aware in the show.
I find the reverse, so that's really interesting.
Okay, all right. But maybe that's good, because I think she's trying to Varen is trying to play like she's not always listening kind of thing.
She is,
but she is. So credit to the actress. I'm excited to see this actress continue.
I love her.
Mm-hmm.
So I know her from Doctor Who and some other British TV, and I was really excited when I saw it was her. It would even have come through my brain as to cast her as Varen, but I'm okay with it. I think she's great casting, so I'm curious to see where they go about with that relationship. This is something that you and I also discussed at the end of last season with how when they came back from COVID, the wigs, and this is just like a little petty note, Moraine's wig in this episode is once again really bad and changes in different scenes, and it's not consistent, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, this is not hard to do. Someone on set should be paying attention to this, but they're just not.
I mean, she's already kind of out of character anyway here, and I'm still kind of, I feel like one moment I feel like she's still shielded, but next moment I feel like she's actually stilled.
I think she's stilled.
I'm beginning to think you're right, but the way he says, but the way he says, how do you, feel knowing that it's
right there,
fingertips? If she was stilled, she would not even feel that.
No, she wouldn't.
But a lot of what she said in these first two episodes, now I'm beginning to feel like she is stilled.
They don't seem to know. It's almost like they don't know yet what she is, so they kind of just keep giving you both options, and we'll figure it out eventually.
Right. Yeah.
But we do see Bail Doman, and that's interesting that they've moved him from Eye of the World to this, because he could have just been in Eye of the World.
To the middle of nowhere in Arafel, I believe they are.
Yeah.
By the way, it's really helpful when you pause the video, because they tell you.
Yeah.
I will admit, I like
who the actors are.
I like that they do that. They show the geography of where those actors are, and then of course, who's on screen right now. And that's
Yes,
how I
I
was able to
actually
identify a lot of the people that are in the show.
I watched season 2. I did watch season 2, but episode 2 of this show with the subtitles on, and I'm normally not a subtitles watcher, and I found that was also helpful because it says each person's name and then their dialogue. And I was like, okay, so this is good for when we're seeing more in
Yeah,
the tower and things
especially
like
when we get these minor characters that it's cool. I love that we are getting book people
that.
now,
Mhm.
rather than just like making up new characters and
Yeah,
giving
I
them
mean, I
full episodes.
agree. I just feel like, especially for Domon, the context of having him there was very awkward. I was like, this seems
It's very I it's been a while since I looked at the map, but I don't not versed if there's any large rivers that go up to Arafel.
I don't
It seems
know.
kind of that. I mean, he does come from the north when he picks up Ran and Matt and Tom
Yeah,
in the first book.
yeah,
So he is coming. He does travel the rivers up, but I mean, so it's not. I wouldn't say it's totally not unbelievable, but it's a weird place for him, for sure.
yeah.
But
But
again, I'm thrilled. Just kind of like Varen, not in the right place, but she's there. He's there. Great. I mean, I'm glad maybe they'll do something more with Doman now, or
I mean, they
he
should because he's
he's
supposed to be in and out of the story going
yeah
forward. So,
he shows up in at the end of this, well, at least the book, Great Hunt.
yes.
He shows up again, I believe, in 4 for some of our major characters.
Okay.
So yeah, he's around. So he plays a little bit of a role. So,
Hmm. So
but
we see
Tom does too.
all, yes. While all of that is happening, we jump over to the White Tower where I felt that this was kind of a Game of Thrones homage to where when Sam is at the Citadel and you see him having to do all of the chores and stuff. This was kind of the vibe I was getting for Egwene initially. And we then see her looking at the outfit of the Amerlin, and I'm like, well, here's some foreshadowing. Like, we're lingering on that outfit a real long time. So that
I
was
I actually didn't mind this homage. I liked that
I
it
didn't
was
mind it either. It was fine.
easily played out what life as a novice is like for her. So
Yes.
I I did laugh a little bit with the catching Alana with her warders, and
I did love that. I love Alana, so that for me was fine. But the
um,
thing that they've dramatically changed here is that Nynaeve isn't an accepted. She is
yeah,
a novice.
because she was never a novice.
No,
Um,
she was not.
yeah,
She's too
yeah,
old
yeah.
to be a novice.
She went immediately to accepted, but
Exactly.
I guess in context, they needed a whole episode for this,
Did
for that
they?
acceptance tense. Uh, well, I mean that's episode 3, obviously, but
Oh, right. Yes, I see.
yeah,
Yeah. So if people are unfamiliar with this, Nynaeve is not my favorite character in the book or the show. The show once again reaffirmed that I don't really like Nynaeve all that much. She's whining a whole lot. She's complaining about being there. And I like that there is this scene with Alana because this was actually Varen in the book that was taking Nynaeve and Egwene into a tent and was trying to show them how to use the one power. But obviously Varen is not in Tarvalin right now. She's with Moraine. So we need someone to kind of fill that role. And it makes sense that it would be Alana just based on the fact that Alana was a character that was introduced last season and has ties to Moraine and all that kind of stuff.
Plus Alana is one of those characters you'll see for yourself when you read book 4.
Yeah.
Alana and Viren spend a lot of time together.
Yes.
In the books, they are a little more so. Yeah, I'm happy that they used a prominent Aes Sedai.
Correct.
And now I think things might play out with Alana's character because there's some stuff that goes.
Yeah, that would be great. I would be super, super happy with that. So okay, we had talked about this last season with this being a possibility for this season that they are now attributing color to weeping. And it's not immediately noticeable in the context of, well, she's a blue Aja, so it's going to look blue. She's a green Aja, it's going to look green. But we see that when they're pulling from different elements, basically, that it is channeling a certain type of color. And then later in the episode, it becomes more apparent that certain people use certain colors. But I'm not mad with them showing how weaving looks, because it's just going to look stupid if you're trying to explain this to people and someone's just there on screen going like, and nothing's happening.
Yeah. So yeah, I liked the that kitchen scene pretty much, and I think that was totally naive to the character to drink the dirty water because she's stubborn as a mule, and
yeah, drove me nuts.
Whether you like her or not, but it is, that's, she played that really well. And
that's how long my husband lasted watching the episode, and he got up and left the scene with that. He was like, I'm done. I was like, yep. I didn't blame him. I was like, she's the worst, so I can't be that upset about it. But one thing I did notice, and I thought this was slightly interesting, is that when they then go to that scene where they basically have all of the representatives of the Aja, because that is something in the book that each Aja has 3 people typically that will be ranked among the higher of that Aja. And Leandrin, while wearing red mostly, has very visible yellow underneath. And I thought that was odd. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was different.
It goes back to the fact that it's more their, like in the book, it's more about their shawl.
Right, exactly.
Their actual clothes. I mean, I would drive myself nuts if, I mean,
only wearing one color.
I couldn't be a red Aja because red clashes with me. I have to be green or blue or gray.
There you go.
Blue, green, or gray.
Oh my gosh, exactly. But we see that in this, Leandrin is really trying to push that she should be the one to train Nynaeve, and all of a sudden they've now come up with this side story that she's killed a novice, which absolutely didn't happen in the book. And they're starting to really flesh out the Leandrin character, which I think can be good and bad. I think that it's good in the sense that for people who have read the books, we know that Leandrin is a dark friend. And when that revelation happens in the book, it's not very dramatic. At least I didn't think it was overly dramatic. I was like, okay, like we don't really know all that much about her, except she's really bitchy most of the time, hates men, and doesn't really seem to like anybody else. But it's good in the sense that, okay, when they do reveal that she is a dark friend, there will be more contextual background to her and maybe more depth to her. But like what Elena is saying, I do think that she did have too much airtime because Rand doesn't show up, I wrote it down, until 41 minutes. And we spend a ton of time with Leandrin. So what were your thoughts on it?
It's I mean, part of it is a production issue. It's like, do we hire more actors to fill in some of these other Aes Sedai roles? Obviously, we are spending a ton of time with Leandrin and, in a sense, Sherry-Ann too. Yeah. I think we're starting to, I mean, that makes sense because in the books, we are focusing on Egwene as a novice. Yeah. And so Sherry-Ann was a big portion of that aspect to her time in the tower. Yeah. But as these were playing out, it's like, okay, is there any other Aes Sedai? But I do like the fact that now, see, you mentioned each color represented by 3. I was kind of viewing, when I did this the second time, I was viewing it and I was only counting 2 of each color.
I think it was 2 in this episode, but it was 3 when they had the judgment episode.
Yeah, the judgment. That's the sitters and kind of thing.
Yes.
But something I want to make a note about that little gathering in the courtyard. Like I said, I was counting 2 different Ajas, and when you freeze the camera, one of the Ajas was Joya Bearer. She was the bald-headed woman.
Yeah.
That's one of Leandrin's 13 sisters.
Mm-hmm. So but she's not a red Aja.
What's that? They
Did
weren't all.
they,
They weren't all red Aja. They
yeah,
were
no, it
like
didn't look like they had
they
her in
were
red.
they were they were two of each color. Her
Okay.
13 were two of each color, and that's what I saw in the courtyard. So I
Okay.
think, except for of course Alana, I think everybody in the courtyard was Alana or Leandrin's 13 black sisters.
Interesting. Okay. That's a good, I like that. We can lean into that a little bit. I
I
think that's
maybe
like a
I'm
good
just pulling
hypothesis.
strings here. Maybe I'm just pulling for some cool like little hidden gems, but
No, I think that could pay
Because
off.
I know Joya Burr is one of her 13
Yes,
black
she is.
sisters, and and then I was like, wait a minute, and then I was like seeing two yellows, two greens, two
Yeah.
blues, and so I was like, okay, so maybe that's her 13, and that's why Leandrin's
Maybe.
with that company.
Interesting. I would be okay with that.
Yeah,
We
that was
talked
just
about it.
a thing I threw out there.
Well, I like it.
Okay.
We talked about it just briefly, but we then see Perrin. And we see that Loyal is just fine. Has miraculously healed by being stabbed by the dagger that should have killed him. And everyone else that had supposedly been stabbed is miraculously just fine. I guess Egwene cried on these people too. I don't really know, but they're not going to answer it and basically play it off as if that didn't happen, which realistically, it shouldn't have happened. um,
So
Probably
therefore, it
not the
didn't.
worst decision.
Yeah, getting
Um,
back on track, I
who
guess.
is your favorite character as well as your favorite actor? There's not many. I think the actors are all good except Perrin. I can't get behind Perrin. I just can't.
I would agree with that. Perrin's the actor for Perrin is probably my least
He's
favorite.
the weakest. But I favorite right now. I mean, I always love Lan. I'm a big Lan stan from the get go, but I actually, in terms of new characters, I'll pick someone new. Elaine. I really like the actress for Elaine. I think she did a very good job in this episode. So I'm okay
Does
with
she
it.
show up in this one?
Is it this one or is it the second one?
Um, she shows up in the next one. We'll
Okay,
get to
so
it. Yeah.
for these groups of episodes in our new season so far, I would say Elaine, I think, is doing a really good job. In terms of a favorite character, though, I'm kind of NA at this moment. No, I'm lying. It's Ishmael. It's Ishmael. How about you?
Still like Lamb. Lan's my guy.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
do
good.
I do think I well, again, this is more so in the next episode, but I do like Matt, and I think they did a good job with the new Matt.
Yeah, we'll get to him
Yeah.
because I have similar feelings. But we see that they're hunting for
And
the
I
horn.
think honestly, see, it's tough. Sorry, I didn't want to keep
No,
interrupting,
you're
but
fine. Go ahead.
Egwene, I didn't like Book Egwene really. I thought she was kind of wallpapery, but I think the uh, here the actress really sells me out. Egwene, she's excited and eager to learn, and and she has those big eyes, like she's naive, and she shows that she's like, so like everybody else I feel like falls into they're so used to the world already, where you've lived your whole life in this small little
Yeah.
village, and now you're in this big city, and I feel like Egwene still shows that. She's still in
Yeah.
awe of being in this world where everybody else is like,
Yeah,
like they've
over
been
it
there
kind of
already,
thing.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think she does a good job. But okay, we're with Perrin, who once again seems to have been given the direction to have his mouth gaping open at pretty much every possible moment. It drives me absolutely insane. I'm not going to keep lamenting on this, but going forward, everyone should know it drives me absolutely insane every time I see it. But the thing that is even more insane is that we meet Elias.
So yeah, Hurin is out and
And
Elias
Elias
is
is
in.
in.
Yeah.
And I think this is because Huron's role was really linked to Rand in the book. He's not really linked to anybody else. Of course, Ingtar is there in that kind of trio of the three of them, but his connection and pivotal person is Rand. And without Rand, he doesn't make sense in that
Right.
way.
So remind me at the end after we cover even episode 2 to circle back to this, Huron and Rand and all that.
Yes. So one thing I want to point out that's completely not important is just gonna put it out there right now. Masema, the guy that plays Masema, is the same actor who played a character named Citric on The Last Kingdom, and I love him so much. So if you all haven't watched The Last Kingdom, go watch The Last Kingdom because that's actually a really good show.
Yeah, I have a note. I have a note here on my notes for this. I'm like, all the Shenarians are like these Chippendale like hotties.
I 100% agree. That is very
like there's not a single unattractive person in that room.
Exactly. Just missing bow ties in Vegas and they would all be thriving. But this is very, very accurate. And I wrote this in my notes. In the book, it's the really big reveal that Ingtar is a dark friend, right? And I kind of had a feeling while reading the book, I was like, either Huron or Ingtar is going to be a dark friend. It's got to be either one of them. And I was leaning towards Huron in the book. So I was slightly surprised, but not crazy. They're like telling you in this story.
They are telling you here.
He's bad.
I mean, he is an ass. I mean, he is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's at this point. I think it's during the funeral scene later in the episode.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to wait till we cover that, but he's like defending Padden Fane. And I'm like,
he might have had a reason. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, what? I'm like, I mean, at this point, Ingtar is just like, we got to find the horn. We got to find the horn. That's all. I mean, he was obsessed with the horn, and I think it was just more for his own personal glory. And he didn't want Padden. I mean, I think even in the books, despite sharing the alliance with the Dark Lord, he wanted his own glory and fame. So I think he was all for killing Padden Fane. Here it's like, oh, he's my best friend. I mean, why are you talking about him like that? You know?
Yeah. So we then go back to the tower, and we see that they are resurrecting this plot line that Nynaeve is more bonded to the warders than she is to the Aes Sedai. And I actually really loved that she referred to Alana as Alana, and her warder was like, Alana Sedai to you. And I was like, yes. That to me was such a key thing because this was actually really important in the book. And I think it's Egwene that has this problem in the book that she keeps forgetting to say Sedai at the end of it. And like certain ranks of Aes Sedai versus novices can't speak to other people. So that I thought was important. And I liked that they did that. So I was happy with that. But then we get more of this Liandrin and Nynaeve stuff that really starts to play out. So they're building up that relationship significantly.
Yeah. So here we're I'm assuming you're talking about back into the kitchen scene with just Nynaeve.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I didn't hate this.
Okay.
I have it I have like little things. I have like a check mark if I liked the scene. I have I have like a
system,
like a minus sign if it was okay, or and then I have a big X if I absolutely just despise the scene.
Okay. So if you liked it, that's good.
And we're gonna get to one.
So you just froze for me for a second. I'm hoping you'll come back in a second here.
Okay.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
Okay. Yeah. Again, I think they're trying to complex Liandrin is kind of what they're going for here. I think she comes off as a bitch, yes. And I think they're like, oh, maybe we're coming off too strong with this character, you know, like kind of like Ingtar, where it's like clearly not on the good side. And Liandrin was kind of even floundering with that, despite being a red, which are more strict in their teachings.
Yeah.
But I don't mind fleshing out this character.
Okay.
Yeah, we want Rand, we want Matt, and I was at this point like, I need some Matt, I need some Matt, especially way too long out of the book. I think they were trying. I knew they were going to probably do some, you know, reveal with
Yeah.
Rand at some point, and I would have been okay with that. But I was waiting for some Matt.
Yeah.
But and I was getting to the point where I was like, okay, is Leandrin and Shiriam the only I saw in this tower? I mean, did they all go on a sabbatical somewhere, or
Right.
but I thought it was really, I thought it was both characteristics for both characters from the book. This
Yeah.
scene.
I can see
And
that.
I know why, in a sense, they're kind of similar.
In some ways, yes, they're both stubborn as hell and super annoying.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
How did you feel?
I was okay with it, but I was starting to get to the point that I was like, we're putting a lot of time into Leandrin here. And I mean, I said this last season, specifically with episode 8, and the fact that Rand doesn't get any moments for being the dragon. So I'm sitting here at this point going, okay, where is Rand? Like, I get that we are spending time in the tower and that's okay, but we have several episodes to start doing this. We don't need all of this Leandrin stuff right off the bat. But the thing that really took me out of the story was the burial scene going back to Ingtar and Perrin.
Yeah,
Where did they get these burial candles?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, are they just walking around with these candles and that's the thing? And then also, we're really gonna blame Padan Fane for killing your fake wife. Like, that we're going back to that well of that story. Like, let it go. Just, I'm over his wife.
That should never be. Yeah.
No, it should just never have even been a thing. And I was kind of hoping, like, some of the other things that they've clearly been ignoring from season 1, that maybe Perrin's wife was something we were also going to ignore. And we're just not.
Yeah. I had several, of course, issues with this. One, Igtar was being too revealing already for me. I didn't like it. I don't like the fact that I was to the point right here anyway. I was to the point is Rand and Matt, this is really important character development here.
Yes.
This is when things start drifting apart for our 3 characters, Matt, Perrin, and Rand, because they know that he's risen above. He was, I think, become a lord, and there is that tension, and you don't have any of this here.
No.
So I was I was irritated, but honestly, it is kind of playing out according to the books, just minus the 2 major characters. But I mean, roughly, it's more so than anything else that we've seen. But yeah, I don't know. The funeral was not just.
It was a weak scene, in my opinion. But here's a question for you, because we've talked about the fact that Egwene in the books and Egwene in the show, more so in the books, is the first one to really drop that she is from the 2 rivers. She wants to be done with that whole life. So when we see that she's the one that remembers that it's bell time, did you find that a little bit odd?
Yes and no. I think she's one. They did this new thing where Bran is supposedly dead. They believe he's dead
and bald, but yes.
Yeah, and pretty much Matt, and then Perrin's out, wandering, and I think this was a show of loneliness on her role, that she was having remembrances, and then it's like, oh, it's bell time. This is when all this shit hit the fan, and this is when all this stuff happened.
A year ago.
So
yeah.
I picture it more with Perrin, and I'm glad they did show Perrin, because Perrin is more of the he is more of the one who thinks about the 2 rivers the most, I think, of all 5 of them, including Nynaeve. I think Nynaeve at first was just about getting everybody home, but
Yeah.
she's forming her own life here
Land
now.
love.
Yeah, so she's got land, and then she's got, wanting to stay in the tower. So I
Yeah.
think she did say goodbye to a sense to the Two Rivers herself. But
Okay.
Perrin always, I think, had that connection to home.
Yes.
And so yeah, I don't know. I didn't mind it.
Okay. Um,
What
I
I
was wrong. It wasn't 41 minutes. It was 49 minutes and 41 seconds when we first see Rand. So that's a really long time to
and all
not
we
see
see
him.
of him is lighting a candle.
Yes, he lights his lantern, and that's basically it. Um, okay, so the end of this episode, I have some major issues with. And this is sort of book related, but semi not book related. So I believe it's in The Dragon Reborn, but I could be wrong. But I did talk about it with you at one point that in the books, Moraine starts questioning Land and his bond. And that she is trying to test the waters to basically see if he wants to sever his bond because she believes that he is going to want to bond himself to Nynaeve when she becomes a full Aes Sedai. And she sets in motion this plan that should she die, she wants him to go to Alana, and Alana has agreed to take him on as another warder. Lan is really upset by this, whatever. I don't feel like Moraine and Lan would ever be speaking to each other like this in the show, how they
This
are
is
at the end of this
this is
episode.
my big X. This is
Yeah.
my big red X.
Yeah.
And I agree 100%. This would never happen between Bookland and Book Moraine.
No.
This is totally off character for both of them. Even in the show, I think it's off character.
I agree.
From what we've seen of their selves together in the first season. I didn't like this. I hated this whole mopey Moraine, and I know she's like trying, she's frantic and she's trying to find solutions, but this whole really backdoor, like slamming the door in Land's face in more ways than one.
Yeah.
The whole dinner scene really just ticked me off. I was so angry, and I really hated Moraine here. Hated her.
Yeah. I did not understand this whatsoever. And the fact, okay, so at the end, you're right, Daniel. It seems that she's intentionally pushing him away, but
But
they
it's
aren't
so
giving the right
lame.
context for that.
And I get why she's doing it, but this goes back to, this has been done over and over again. This kind of version of pushing people away is by alienating them and making them feel like they're hated. They have a relationship enough to say, listen, Lan, this is things I need to do. Having that adult conversation with each other and that respect for each other probably would have worked better than this tired old, I'm going to push you away by being mean and nasty to you. I hate this. This is teenage.
It's very petty. It doesn't seem like them.
Shit right here. I hate it.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all. But the thing that really irked me, so when she decides she's going to flee, which was super obvious. I mean, anyone that's really paying attention, she's not going to be there for dinner. She's taking off. Okay, so we've got 3 eyeless that are following Moraine now for some strange reason. And we know from the books, killing an eyeless is difficult. Like, it's not a really simple thing, which is why later in the Great Hunt, when they do find that body of the eyeless that Padden Fane has killed, it's a big deal because they're like, holy shit, someone killed an eyeless. But Moraine just seems to do this rather easily. And of course, there's then this lengthy, it's this lengthy fight scene. And then they kind of give you that hope that maybe Moraine can now channel again when you see it's Van Varen, which at this moment, if you're looking at the color of her weaves, it's brown. It might look like it's a bit orange, but when you really look at it and Tomas, it's brown. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
that they did that.
I liked what they did with the movement of the fades. I thought that was really cool. They were
Mhm.
they played them off like very fast. I like the way they worked the shadows. I like the way the production did that. So production wise, I think that played out really cool. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, that and there was more. There was like four. Yeah, there was
Yeah,
like
that's what
four
Patrick
or
is saying.
five.
There's 4. I thought there was 3, so
It
I was listening
started
to
with three, and
4.
then I think like even I thought there was five. Honestly, there was like a cup. There was a
They kinda
group
just
of
kept
them.
showing up at one point.
Uh,
You're like, "Okay, enough."
I'm like, yeah, I'm like, and I think it is believable that once Aeolus and Varen show up, they can take out
I
the
agree.
remaining
Once they
fades.
show up,
But
yes.
even I found it even unbelievable, and I am glad that here we have Moraine yet again morally hurt. I mean, how many times are we going to get this woman like stabbed? You know,
Until there's no coming back.
she's
Um,
been stabbed so many times, and I. uh,
yeah, so
so
that's such a
I
good
did want
point.
to before we end on this episode, I did want to circle
Yep.
back. We did finally meet Matt.
Yes, we
There
did
was
meet Matt.
that.
I'm so sorry we skipped over Matt.
No, it
Yes.
was, and of course it was with Leandrin because there's
Yes.
nobody else that exists. But
So the one thing I will give for that is at the end of the last season, we saw that Moraine sent that letter for the Red Aja to find Matt. And clearly that has come to fruition. So in this context, I'm okay with Leandrin being in that scenario,
I
but it's
don't.
just a lot.
It's very bizarre to me that he's being held prisoner like that.
I mean, yes,
I
it is.
I thought in the books. I thought in the books he was able to like they made it. They tricked him in a really smart way where
Yep.
yeah you can feel like you're free, you know, kind of thing. But we have people that will bring you back, kind of thing
Yes,
because
it was this
he
false
was.
sense of freedom. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think in the books he had a huge appetite, and you always had to
Yes, he could
eat.
not stop eating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he could not stop eating. So it was a way to keep him from like they allowed him to leave the grounds, but he was like so low energy he would have to like eventually
Come
like
back. Yeah.
come back. Yeah. So I I don't understand this whole prisoner thing. This seemed I mean, we know Leandrin is black, but the rest of the Ashas aren't, and they must know Matt is there. I don't think
You
that
would
was a
think so.
secret. What's it?
You
But
would definitely think so.
why is he held like such a prison? I mean, he's in a cell. It's not even a comfortable guest room. If he was like under like lock and key in a nice room or something, but it's like a cell. It didn't make sense to me.
So yeah, this is a good question. Where is his luck? That's not come yet. That should be a little bit later. But okay. So the episode ends basically on that scene with Moraine and Lan, and that is episode 1. I thought it was really poorly done for a lot of different reasons. There just were so many issues, but let's jump into episode 2 where my biggest issue starts. And this is the fact that we have
I
just
I'm trying to remember things because I have 4 large X's on this episode. And one of them says, Lan and Moraine, what the F? And I'm
yeah, I
trying to
have a
remember
lot
what
of WTFs in my notes, like underlined. There's a lot of them.
I'll remember when we get to it, I'm sure.
Oh my God. So the beginning of this episode where we see Celine, and okay, let me go back to casting. Celine looks is exactly how I pictured Celine. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks
Enjoy
for
the episode as best you can. But in terms of aesthetics, I feel like Celine is very much what I pictured in the book. She looks like a seductress. She fits the bill in terms of her charisma with Rand. I think that's all fine. But okay, we've skipped over how he comes across Celine, which was so interesting in the second book. I loved how he met Celine. The fact that there's this really alluring thing about her, and he keeps trying to figure out what it is about her that is so appealing to him. And she's very coy. She vanishes in and out of the story. But no, here they are romantically involved from the get-go, which I do not like at all.
No, there was no. I wrote here, Ran and Celine, huh?
Yes, her iconic
Because
clothing. Yep,
yeah,
none of that.
I wrote, huh? Because I was like, did I miss an episode? Did I start on episode 2?
Yeah,
When did we meet Celine? You know,
yeah.
I forgave the time jump, but there I get it. You got 8, like, you get 8 episodes, and you have to really start introducing characters fast because we are starting to meet. We are exploring the world here. We
Yep,
start meeting a lot of Robert Jordan's characters really, really fast,
yep.
and this already established relationship just doesn't make any sense to me. One, because Ran and Gwen are still in love.
Yes, and that's
And
discussed
I
in this
don't see
episode.
Ran. I don't see Ran. I think he would still feel like he can be romantically involved with Egwene at this point.
Do you?
I do. I think he. I, I mean, I know in the book they were pretty much going their separate ways, but
Yeah,
the show, the last time they're together, they spend a night together.
yeah,
They're really they're really close.
yeah.
That they shouldn't be that close. But now we're throwing out this window. Ran is like hooking up with the innkeeper. She's an innkeeper in this, or some sort of inn tavern girl or
He
something.
seems to have a type.
Yeah, he loves the tavern girls. Yeah. So part of me thinks that they made her a tavern girl as a reflection that a Lanfear knows, like you said, he's got a thing for tavern girls.
Yeah, it's possible, and I
and
mean,
and
yeah.
and I'm giving the writers too much credit
I
here.
think probably, honestly.
Kind of like the 13 Black Aja from the last episode,
Yeah.
but and maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I like to think that okay, they're going the I'm making another Egwene kind of character here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's funny because my spouse thought now I think she's really pretty. I think she makes a good Lanfear. I do think she looks more like Fael.
Really? I don't. I
Mhm.
think she's
I
straight up Lanfear.
but I think it's I don't. I think she looks like Lanfear.
I see. For me, I think Fael has more of like a youthful look.
Yeah, I mean she's a little too old to be Fael, definitely.
Yeah.
But I still like she looks Saldera to me. Very bold nose, the black, thick hair. I mean, that's how Fael was described. But
That's
yeah,
fair.
I think she looks. I do think she makes a great Celine here.
Yes.
Um,
As soon as I saw her, I was like, Celine. You
yeah,
see her, and if you know the book, you're like, that's who that is without question.
yeah. For how well they did Tar Valon, I wasn't sold on the look for Karin.
Agreed. Neither was I.
I mean, I know they're in the poor section, but
They are.
when they showed like quick images of the city and they're supposed to be these like topless towers, and I know when you're actually in the city proper, it's a pretty grand city, not as grand as Camlin,
Yeah.
but still has
Pretty
its
impressive.
own thing. And it looked kind of just run down, shackly, kind of
Yes.
weird to me. So
I
I
agree. It
for how
got
well
better.
they've done their set so far. This one was a little like a
Missed the
letdown,
mark.
but I mean
Um,
that's minor. I more about the characters. So
that's fine though. I've been petty with that as well as with the wigs and all that fun stuff. But despite the fact that Rand has shaved his head, his hair is still as red as ever. It's
yeah, I was
blatantly
discussing this.
apparent.
Yeah, I mean I was discussing this too. It's like, all right, I understand now why he might have shaved his hair. Using, I mean, it doesn't happen ever, but he's in Karin. They hate the Aiel. He's probably mistaken all the time as an Aiel, so that's why he shaved his head. But I'm still not a fan of the shaved head. He's got no hair anywhere else, so he kind of reminds me of. I mean, he's not albino, but he looks albino, and just nothing against pale people. I'm pretty pale, but I
I'm
just
like
think it's
glistening white right
it's too much. It's too
now.
much. Yeah, white.
Yeah. Yeah. So they show that that's where he is, and fine. They have the lack of the intro, and then we're back to Elias. And I wrote in my notes, why is Elias here? Like, this to me just is taking so long for there to be any information given to Perrin that it's becoming unimportant. I feel like it's just because it's taking so long.
Mhm.
And so the house that they show up to, and Perrin now getting these weird visions of the past. This
This was Ran?
in the books, this was
Wasn't this
Rand.
Ran in the books? This was not Perrin.
So no, Perrin never has anything like this.
No.
The closest thing that Perrin kind of gets is his wolf dreams, in
Yeah.
that's the whole dream thing is
Yeah.
like a big thing that they all tap into.
Rand is the one who gets these like past images, I think. Rand is the one who sees there's a woman at the door. He goes in, and these like scenes do play out, and then in the end, there's the bugs and all that. Everybody's all the decomposing.
I do think that is Rand, yeah. And I think it's starting to build into the storyline for Rand is that he's going insane. And it builds into that madness
Right.
factor. But for
Mhm.
Perrin, it doesn't make any sense why wolves would have the ability to see the past.
See in the past.
Like, that just having great sense of smell, vision, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Smell, absolutely. I mean, and Elias is there, and yeah, it's such a shame that Rand is just missing. He's just this was a really rough for me. The whole everything with Rand, I just felt was so unnecessary in this.
Yes,
book.
it was.
Or this particular one. And we know why he's there when we get to the end of the episode, but the lead off up until then and the writers do this a couple times, and they do it in episode 3 because I as we mentioned, I did watch that. There's a lot of like fake outs just to, I swear they're doing it on purpose at this point.
Definitely. Yeah. It's drama. That's all that it is.
Yeah, and I'm glad they included the Fae nailed to the door.
Yes. So I put that in that 100% does happen in the book. The scenario in the book is that Rand, Matt, and Perrin are all on the hunt for the horn because they realize that it's connected with the dagger and they can get both. And they know that Matt is going to die because he's still tethered to the dagger in the book. So there's really high stakes in the book that just aren't there in the show. Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of like, we're going to find the horn because we're going to find the horn. And I'm like, we don't really know why this is super important, first of all, in the show. And then when they do get to this scene in the book, it's like I said earlier, in the context of Moiraine killing the Fade, it's a big deal that a Fade has been killed and stabbed to this door because they're like, someone super powerful had to have been able to do this. And it illuminates the reader to the fact that something is going on with Padan Fain and that he's no longer just Padan Fain. But again, we're not getting the development of the characters, any of the villainous characters really in that way that we need to know why things are important and why things are happening.
Yeah. And then this leads to the next scene that, again, this was my first X, which is Lan and Moiraine leaving the chateau or whatever, the house, the safe house. Because Moiraine is still moping,
blaming him,
and just being a bitch to Lan for no reason.
Yep. Blaming him for her leaving, which I thought was hilarious. I was like, "What is happening here? This just makes no sense." It was
unnecessary scene, just completely unnecessary. And then leading into Rand and his like long scene with this Arod guy who doesn't exist.
Yes. So I feel like this is because they've realized that they haven't mentioned the heron marked blade enough, and they haven't had any of the training talks with Rand that they did at the beginning of the Great Hunt. But those conversations in the book happen with Lan, and those were really good because they were foundational for that relationship, as well as just giving Rand this kind of bolster of confidence that he can learn how to do these things.
Right.
And of course, we talked about this in our first season review, in that we're not getting that narrative from Rand with him thinking, whenever he thinks of the sword, he thinks about Tam and the fact that Tam isn't really his father. That drama is missing for us in the show. So I feel like they're kind of just trying to be like, hey, book readers, here's Bone. Let's talk about the fact that he's an Aiel and there's a Heron Mark blade and a blade master.
Yeah.
So it's trying to tick boxes, but it's not ticking the boxes in the way that
it should
be. So that's...
It was a very long scene.
Yes, it was a very long scene. What did you think of the music in these episodes?
I was going to bring that up when they were doing the Egwene homage to her novice training.
And that's where I wrote it down too.
It's just like, what am I watching here? I feel like I'm watching kind of like just like a modern day kind of thing. I think the music was kind of taking me out of it. I think we had a lot of like old traditional music in the first season, and I thought, why are we deviating into this modern music a little bit? And I hate that when they do that with fantasy things. It takes me out. It's like, I don't want to hear. I'm waiting for a Taylor Swift song. It's just, what is going on here with the music? I forgot to mention that because I had a note on that. I said love the novice, tasks of the day. Hated the music, and
And we meet Elaine in this scene.
Yes, this is a big heart for me, actually.
There you go. So
how you feel about Elaine or Nynaeve, I feel about Elaine.
Yes, you do.
However, I think this was a fantastic scene.
I actually really liked this scene. It felt very true to her.
Grade A plus.
Yeah, it felt very true to Book Elaine, where that she kind of puts her foot in her mouth. But also we're establishing the fact very quickly that she is royalty. She's the daughter heir, but she doesn't have a holier than thou personality, even though she's been given a life of privilege. She is says stupid things that she shouldn't always say, but it's never done in a malicious way. And that's something that I appreciate that they've kept from Book Elaine to show Elaine.
Yes. And the actress did a really great job. I might actually care for Elaine show-wise.
There you go.
Maybe if I ever do a reread of the books, I will have a little more like for her, because I'll maybe picture this actress. And I thought it was just a great scene. I had a big smile on my face.
So I liked her a lot.
I thought, okay, this is good here. Let's keep this going. Don't ruin this character.
Yes, agreed. To speak of my Elaine, though, Nynaeve is stalking people again, and she's following Leandrin, and now all of a sudden can listen to the wind again, which I thought was odd, because she says that in the last season that as soon as she channeled for the first time, she wasn't able to hear the wind anymore. So now, I guess because she's not channeling anymore, she can hear the wind again. Like, I'm not really sure if that's what they're trying to imply. But we see that she's kind of off on this little side quest, and that's fine.
The healing house at the Yellows, is that what you're talking about?
Yes. So has that part happened? Have I skipped over that part?
I think it happens after we meet Elaine. I think Nynaeve and Leandrin go to the healing house.
Which I thought was good, in the sense that obviously healing is really important to Nynaeve, and they're making the connection of Broken Bone Fever, which is the story she tells to Rand about Egwene in season 1.
Also, the first time we see an accepted
Yes.
They put the bands, I guess, on the
Cuffs. Yeah.
cups. Yeah.
Which was fine.
Yeah, it was fine. It was a touch.
Yes.
And then Matt Leandrin buys like sweet cakes for Matt.
For Matt. Why not?
Now,
But
now I loved the one. I did put a note here on this interaction with Matt. I like when Leandrin leaves, and this was a very okay. We're starting to see Matt here. Finally, we're seeing Matt, and it's like he does the motions with the click.
yeah,
He
I
does
thought
the
that was funny.
motions with the lock. He counts the footsteps, and then he takes off to start
His Shawshank
total
Redemption
total
escape.
Matt. I was like, yes,
I
yes.
thought that was good too. I thought
thought
that
it
felt
was I
right.
thought it was a great Matt getting back to his roots kind of thing.
Agreed.
And
I liked that.
and then of course we had to switch scenes again. So but
Yes.
it was like, man, we switch on Matt. We don't spend a lot of time.
We don't spend a lot of time with him. No. So a couple of things in my notes. One, I have, why have they made Elias so weird? One of the big things I noticed while we were watching this, Elias in The Eye of the World is more standoffish than anything else, but is highly informative. Like that's his purpose. And even though he is standoffish, he's still willing to take Perrin and Egwene to the Tinkers, and they have that whole relationship. Fine. This version of Elias is just like a zombie, and I'm like, what is going on?
It's like he's like so in debt. He just like all he does is like stare.
Yeah.
You know?
And he's like,
and then he like I said here, why is he not like talking to Perrin? Why is it only just staring at him, not
staring at
like
Perrin,
interacting with Perrin? He had like one line, the Shinarans are not your pack, and then that's it. And
that was it. And that was even later. That was after all of this staring, where exactly he's just women looking at him. So I have a lot of issues with this like statuesque Elias that they've put in with these very blatant yellow eyes. It's just so awkward. But then the scene with Moiraine and Varen is layered.
I gave this one a check.
Okay.
Because part of this conversation is part of a conversation in a book.
Mm-hmm.
This is back in Faldera when the Amlin seat, Varen and Alana and a couple of other Aes Sedai go up to Faldera, and Varen pretty much flat out says, you know, in her nonchalant, her awesome nonchalant way, oh, and of course Rand is the Dragon Reborn, you know, and she's like doing something mundane, you know, and Moiraine is like just baiting whether she needs to like kill Varen.
Yeah.
And so I did like this was brought me a little more back to Moiraine, because right up to this point I was like, I'm losing any interest in Moiraine.
Yes.
Character. This is like not her character in any shape or form. So I did appreciate this scene, because this felt again back a little more to the book. And I don't want people to think that unless it's from the book, I'm going to hate it. There's a lot of scenes that I've enjoyed that are not in the book, and that are, I think, improved the show and the material. But when you hit these book moments, it's just like, you know? So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. How about you?
So I thought it was interesting in the sense that I feel like this version of Varen is more direct and intentionally blunt than Book Varen. Book Varen is kind of that like scholarly, not head in the clouds, but like just kind of very focused on the task. And the task is, that's the dragon. So I'm going to say that's the dragon. And that's kind of just Varen. Here she's testing Moiraine, which is interesting. But the thing that was most, I think, layered in this scene is the fact that she mentions loopholes. And that's going to be something for Varen much further down the road. But I think that that was important that they did mention this, because I was like, okay, we're getting to kind of know that Varen is a more nuanced character, maybe. I don't know if non-book readers would maybe have picked up on that with Varen, but I do think it was a good thing for them to mention the loopholes and kind of put that in context of Varen. So wasn't that upset with it. But I didn't love that she's testing Maureen, because that
Yeah,
seemed a little awkward.
this goes back to my thought, like with the way they're taking the Kieran character altogether, and I wish they would. This is one particular character because she's so complex. I wish they would keep it to the source material, because it's gonna. I don't want it to turn into anything else like Ishtar or Leandrin or any of these other characters that are just they're like, let's just put all the cards on the table kind of thing.
Yeah.
I want the thing with Viren is she is this mystery through almost the entire series. And the thing with her, the way in the book, and I don't need all the stuff like the soot always on her face and her like kind of thinking out loud or anything like that. But I like that she's less direct in the book, and it's just all about, but like you said, she speaks her mind still, but she's also kind of nonchalant about it, whereas here it's like you said, I'm testing you, I have all these things in my head. I don't think that's the way she would. I think she still plays this, like she plays a role in the book of this. She does play a role in the book as more of a flighty, not really paying attention to everything that's going around her.
Yeah.
When we know she is.
Patrick, in terms of what you're saying, yes, she does test people, but I feel like it's different, kind of like what we're saying, in that it doesn't feel as combative as I felt like it did in the show. But we'll see how that plays out with Varen throughout the stuff. So, okay. I want to talk a little bit about, before we talk about more Leandrin stuff, we need to talk about Celine and Rand. Because I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, because they start doing like a lot of scenes between Celine and Rand kind of like goes off and has his little escapade where he hurts that guy, which
dumb.
We jumped a little bit ahead on Rand, which whatever.
Dumb.
Celine saying to Rand, I can pretend that you're him, someone that I loved a long time ago. I was like, oh my God, you guys are killing me. It's so on the nose. It's so bad, but like also just had me laughing, because one of the things that I thought it was funny in the books, but not everyone probably shares my sentiment, is the fact that Lanfear is like a crazy ex-girlfriend in the books and is like, Lou Theron is mine. And here she already has him. I'm like, this takes away so much of the drama that's building up in the books, because the point is that she marks the dragon as being the dragon. Like, that's important for him to be the dragon. So we've eliminated that. And then they're just already together. So yeah, it's a whole thing that I thought was very funny and very, very out of place. What did you think, Chris?
I get that Rand has this ulterior motive going on, and we, of course, like I said, we don't know that until the end. And they're playing, the writers are playing, us, even because they know a lot of us have read the books, and they're like, we're all like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And they're trying to test us to see if we're gonna, see where they're going with this at the end.
Yes.
I don't mind. I didn't like Rand getting so violent this early, this stage. No. I don't feel like he's in Great Hunt. He's still Rand Mathor to me. He doesn't really go off because we are mixing. It's clear we're mixing us books 2 and 3 here.
Yeah.
And I feel like we are in book 3 Ran.
Yes, we are.
Clearly. This is clearly book 3 Ran. And whatever, but we need to have book 3 other characters, I think, at this point too, then.
Yes.
If that's the way we're gonna play it.
I agree, Patrick. She does have him in the books, but it's much more a cat and mouse chase because she realizes it's not the right time yet. At least that's kind of how I assumed it to be. But I thought this was really funny. Honestly, I just thought it was a little soon to have them in this kind of context together. But that was my personal feeling on the Celine and Rand relationship.
I mean, when I was watching this the first time, I'm still angry that Rand's not on the hunt.
Yes, he should be on the hunt. 100% should be on the hunt.
This is just out of character for him, but
yeah.
But then it come to realize when I'm watching it the second time, okay, we are not in book 2 Rand, we are book 3 Rand, where he is more aloof to just doing his own thing at this point.
Yeah.
He's heading for Tyr, but here he's just doing something different. So
yes. So how do we feel about Liandrin's further development in this episode, in that we see she's sneaking off somewhere? We don't really know where she's sneaking off to. And then there's that scene where it appears she has a son.
Daniel, I think that might have been episode 3, but that's why I kind of didn't mention that, because she does have a more Lanfear type moment. But I think, yeah, that was episode 3.
Spoilers, guys.
That's okay. We're going to be covering that pretty soon. So
yes, on Sunday.
We're pretty much establishing, and my spouse goes, "Don't make me feel sorry for Leander. Don't make me feel sorry for Leander." And exactly. I was kind of agreeing with it, but we are into this age where we can't have black and white villains. Everybody has to be gray.
Yeah,
and I think that's what they're trying to do with Liandrin. They're trying to give her this sympathetic aspect to her, where she has this son who does not have the agelessness thing, and he's older than her. And we are establishing our sympathetic villain here with Liandrin. If I didn't read the books, I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, that's fair. I kind of felt similarly. I was like, okay, they're trying to humanize her, which, it's very much this. We need to have morally gray villains. We can't just have a villain be a villain anymore, which, I mean, I like in the sense that we have people that have motivations for things and we understand them a little bit better. But it's more time that I feel like could have been devoted to Rand at this point, or Matt. But the thing we get with Matt in this episode is his Shawshank revelation leads him to Min. And Min seems to be allowed to continue to have haircuts while she's at the White Tower. So that's nice for Min, and that her sides are very perfectly.
So she's not disguised as Melindia or whatever her real name was.
Exactly.
However, I gave this one a check.
I like this too.
I actually really love the dynamic of Min and Matt, but I am team Min when it came to Rand's women.
Yep.
So I did love this whole interaction, and made sense to put these two together. And I do think they do have interactions while Matt's at the tower and she's at the tower. I will say the one line I didn't care for, it's trying to appeal to that like modern audience, was, "I'll check my social calendar." What?
Yeah.
Why don't you just say, "I'll text you"? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Very much.
But that's me like really nitpicking. But I was like, social calendar.
Yeah.
But never mind that. I still, this whole the way they played with each other. But not in a sexual way, but just because they're both kind of the similar character. I just love this scene. And
I
it
did
goes
too.
back to more Matt. He's one of our three.
Yes.
And I feel like the show, and like you said, who Bookborn calling it the Tower, maybe that's why.
Yeah.
The boys are, except for Perrin, I feel like we are getting a lot of Perrin.
Yeah.
But Matt and Rand are just Rand is just doing his thing, and Matt, I get it. He's not able to move around here. He's still in prison. So I mean, how many jail cell moments can we have?
Right.
So I was really happy to see this scene. This really made me happy. This was I love this moment.
Yeah, I thought it was good. The next scene I actually like too, but I did have a question as to why Elaine's brothers aren't there. I thought that was an interesting choice to not have them there. Because they are important for many characters, not just Elaine. But I liked the conversation that Elaine and Egwene have over jealousy and the fact that it's not a good color on her or anyone, because this is something that I have discussed at length with you, and I just keep yelling at the internet, the fact that Robert Jordan wrote girls very poorly and the fact that all of them just seemingly are super jealous of each other. So I'm hoping that they kind of have this as a one and done scenario, and then maybe they can move on and not treat each other that way. That would be nice.
Yeah. I made a note here because I like the scene too, but I did laugh because it's like, oh boy, here we go. First tea scene with Elaine.
Elaine, yeah.
I mean, it's not tea, but it feels like tea. It's like
Yes, 100%.
it's gonna smoother skirts and
100%.
proper, but I laughed. I was like, tea with Elaine, here we go. But no, I agree. It was a good scene, and I thought it was a very necessary scene. I love the whole. There was a scene earlier that we missed with I think Elaine with Sheriam, where Sheriam had all of her royal stuff, all of her belongings removed, and she was going to punish her. And Elaine said, "No, punish me if you're going to punish somebody," because I thought that was very on par for Elaine. Daughter Aaron, Michael Brew, yeah. But so Elaine really was growing on me this episode, and she was probably honestly the strongest point to this whole episode.
Yeah, she was great.
Elaine. And then I gave second props, of course, to Matt and Min. But yes, loved it.
Good.
More stuff like this, please.
Yes, that would be great, right? Lan and Moraine, once again, not trusting each other is highly, highly, highly problematic. Something too to mention earlier in the episode, we see that when Alana is meeting with Sheriam, we see that Alana is going to be going off to do something for Moraine. So they kind of just left that little tidbit there. And that then is going to come back into play pretty soon. But Moraine is treating Lan like he's a child that doesn't understand anything. And with her saying, reset, is she free? And you don't understand. I wrote in my notes, WTF are they doing with Lan and Moraine? Because
exactly what I wrote too.
Yeah,
I wrote lucky up.
Right there. No sense. I was sitting there going like, what the F is happening? This is so ridiculous. It's not that. It's just not that.
I don't mind changes. Okay. I mean, I don't want to be so gripey and bitchy about things, but when you change an entire character dynamic that you established in the show.
Yes, and now you're just
established this great relationship with Moraine and Lan season 1. Yeah. I love this. Now, I even accepted the fact that she shielded Lan in that last episode to go off in the Blight. It was a change, but it was still. She wasn't rude or anything. She wasn't like cruel or anything like that.
Yep.
Here it's just this 180, and she's blaming every one of her little problems
On land.
on her most trusted, somebody she's in a sense intimate with. I mean, she
Yeah.
is, I mean, minus this, no sexual, of course, but it's, she's no more intimate to anybody else except for Lan. And to be this way, and it's just this childish teenage drama thing to me. And that's, she's the child in the show right now.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't it does not make
it
sense.
doesn't make any sense.
No, and the
And
fact that he steals that thing, the
yeah, the
poem or
letter,
whatever
and
from
he
her.
would never steal from her. I
Never. Ever, ever, ever. These two
or
are intrinsically linked in
now,
the
yeah.
book.
I know and I know in the book he's not happy. She's very civil about it when she talks about it, but she does tell him that if something happens to me, now this is further on in the books, but if something happens to me, your bond will be transferred to Lana. Of course, he's not a big fan of that.
That's in book 3.
Yeah.
So it's not super far ahead.
It's not super far, but it doesn't actually happen. Here it's actually like appears to be happening, and then like, get the F away from me, and I was like, just shaking my head.
The whole scene read very awkwardly. I mean, I understand that Alana would respect this wish of Moraine and would go. Her warders would, of course, go with her. So, like, that part of the scene, I'm like, okay, fine. But the stealing and the talking to him the way that she was it really bothered me, especially because we see in season 1 in the pilot when they're fighting against the Trollocs, how the two of them work as one. And I understand that she's not using the one power right now, so they aren't linked in that way. But these two have been spiritually linked for 20 years. And all of a sudden, it's not that. Like, no. And the little excuse that they tried to give during the episode with the dinner where Varen is explaining what it's like for women to be cut off from the one power, I'm like, fine. But Moraine knew that going to the Eye of the World was going to have consequences. Yeah. And those aren't Lan's fault. So why are we continuing to act as if they are?
And she forgets that, I mean, look at the scene where Stefan's funeral and how he was responding and how she was responding to his response.
To him, exactly.
And that was the connection. And this is why I'm angry with this. It's not that the fact that it didn't happen in the books, it's because you, the writers of the show, are now changing the character. You established the way you want to present Moraine, and we're accepting that. But now you're changing her again into this like 16-year-old, girl who didn't get a pony or something. I mean, I just I don't understand this 180 on the character. And it's like, I'm not mad that she's not book Moraine. I'm mad that it's not season 1 Moraine. I don't know. I haven't been happy with the Moraine scenes. Every time she's on, I'm like,
yeah. So I'm going to ask you a question about that in a little bit when we get to the end of the episode, because we're almost there. But I'm going to note here that because once again, I'm going to shout out Last Kingdom because people really should go watch The Last Kingdom. But Massima is like there with his very large arms and he's killing everybody. And that's great because, and I wrote this in my notes, WTF are the Sean Chen doing here? Like, it's just so out of place.
So I had to, when I watched it the second time, because I had the same reaction, I wasn't quite sure where they were located. And when I paused the thing, they're in Era Domen, which is just north of Toman Head and
then that makes sense.
Plan. So it made sense to me. There's
but
still
you shouldn't have to pause that to find out,
I had to pause that to find out.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to do that.
Because I thought, what are they doing way into? Because I assume they're way into like the Middle Lands, kind of thing, doing whatever. Because in the book, I think they're still in Kareen.
Yes.
For most of this book, until they use the non-existent portal stones, but maybe they'll come up later. Who knows? Because what my hope is, and we can talk about hopes at the end here, but I don't know. So I was the same way. And then not only is it just, I thought, okay, it's just a scouting party of Sanchin. No, it's the whole grand royal everybody, including Ishii.
including Ishii and the Empress.
Yeah, and well, no, that's High Lady Sora.
Excuse me. Okay,
Yeah,
so
but still,
not her.
but even her, she wouldn't be at this like little fishing village. To me, that just seemed weird.
Yes.
So
to Elena's point, I wrote in my notes that Perrin would have had 12 concussions being pulled down all those stairs and then across everything else. Like it was ridiculous. But
well, now he can hang his mouth open longer. So
oh my God, yes. Which I will have you know, I wrote down several more times in my notes, but I haven't mentioned it. I'm being really good about it for you guys. Ishii, I think, is there because they're trying to really establish that he is involved in many, many moving parts, which I'm not that upset with because behind the scenes, that's sort of what's happening. It might not be Ishmael that's doing it, but they're part of the Dark One's plan.
No, so yeah, I mean, and Ishii does play a role in the end of the book.
Yes.
I will say though, he is not the Forsaken associated with the Sanchin. There is a Forsaken that is associated with the Sanchin. So I'm not sure if that means that they're eliminating this particular Sanchin or Forsaken, and that would be Semiraj. So maybe she'll show up later, but Ishii is around. This is a very heavy Ishii, so I was okay.
Yeah.
And I'm with it in a way, but I did find it odd that he's there.
I still find the costuming for them super weird too. Like I really don't love the costuming because in the books it terrified me what the costumes looked like for the girls, and I don't feel that sense of fear when I look at these.
So the Dome, the ones that are collared, right?
Yes.
I said, why does she have a pacifier in her mouth?
Exactly. It looks like a pacifier.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's not what it's supposed to be at all.
But I don't, they can change things, but the pacifier, that looks silly to me.
Yes. I mean, for me, that collar leash thing that they had in the book, like actually made me anxious. And I was like, oh, this is a thing. Like you are literally enslaving people and dragging them around as if they're a dog. Like that to me was such a big part of why they were so terrifying. And that's basically been eliminated. So I don't love that. But the episode, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Patrick, you're right. She was across the ocean at this point, but I still kind of, when I think of the Sanchin, I do associate Semiraj with the Sanchin, but
that's fair.
No, it makes sense. And in the book, Ishii is also there. He's also present. Just not prominent, just not like, hi, I'm Ishmael, kind of thing.
Right.
Like he is here, like he is on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer Elena's question, we've talked about this a little bit in context of season 1. I specifically mentioned this, that I prefer calmer demeanor Ishii because book Ishii, while I enjoy him, comes across to me like a Scooby-Doo person. And he's like, well, I'll get you kids if it's the last thing I do, Luther. And like, that's always kind of how I feel Ishii is, which is fine in the book. But I feel like if you're going to have that play out on screen, it wouldn't be as effective as having someone like at the Dark Council that they did at the beginning of episode 1.
And I'm also going to agree. I do like calmer demeanor. I kind of hope maybe we get a rage moment with Ishii.
We're going to need 1 or 2,
to really show that side of him. But as I mentioned earlier, I think he's playing the roles of several of the earlier Forsaken males. And so they need that voice to be a little bit calmer to do so.
Yes.
So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
I agree.
But I do hope we get like ragey Ishii.
I think we're gonna need to maybe at the end of the season kind of show who we're dealing with here, that it's not just this calm, cool, collective person, because he's definitely not those things. But the episode doesn't end with the Shanshan.
Nope.
It ends with Rand getting a promotion at work. Because
Good job, Rand.
This other guy. Good job, Rand, working up that corporate ladder. So, but I have major issues with this. Because Logain's punishment is being kept at the White Tower, basically around people who can channel, knowing that he himself can't channel. That is his punishment. And they've just sent him off to some mental hospital across the world. Like,
and part of me also doesn't even think it's part of me also thinks it was like meant for studying him as well, studying the effects
maybe
of gentling, because they don't get many opportunities to gentlemen. I think that's
true.
I mean, yeah, there was Tom's nephew and all that, and I'm sure there's some minor ones that are never mentioned. You know, we don't know how often they go around gentling people, but but they made it prominent in the book, saying that we have all these like false dragons coming up. So I would think that this would be an opportunity in the book, and I think that's why they kept him at the tower and kept him alive and try to keep him healthy and all that. Was kind of like an analysis study, you know, of the effects of gentling, and try to, and like you said, keep him alive. I mean, it's odd to me that he got shipped to Kyrene. Yeah. It's a weird moment. Plus, I felt relieved partly though with this, despite the change, because like I said, the writers were playing with us with this whole like Rand just casually just living a weird life and forgetting his whole life.
9 to 5. Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect this hidden motivation.
I didn't either. So that was a good surprise.
So I was actually relieved. I was relieved.
I mean,
it's different. It's different, but I was definitely relieved that this happened, because then I thought, okay, this, you know, explains this whole cluster crap that we have going on with this Rand character right now. Because
I agree.
Because Rand and Moraine were, I had in my notes up until this very end. It's like I don't even really care about what's going on with Rand or Moraine. Egwene, Elaine, I didn't, and Matt were up on there, and then Nynaeve was okay for me, but I was getting tired of the Leandrin and Nynaeve storyline a little bit. But Elaine, Egwene, and Matt were high up there. Perrin was kind of low. He was higher than Rand and Moraine, but lower than Nynaeve.
Yeah. So that's the episode. We skipped over just a couple of things, like Nynaeve getting ready for her test and all that kind of stuff, which will be next episode. So we can get more into it then. But we didn't attribute a rating to this episode. So what would you give this?
I gave it higher than the last episode because of Elaine was probably the saving grace for this episode.
Okay.
Matt as well was a saving grace. We got a lot more Matt. So I did go up to a 4.5 on it.
I'm probably at like a 3.5.
Okay. So it was better for you. It was better for you than a 1.
It was, yeah. I mean, there were so many issues with 1. There are also a lot of issues with this one. The main thing is that I just don't know what their plan is, because everything seems really disorganized. Nothing seems properly fleshed out. We don't have the appropriate background to care about a lot of things. And I'm like, you guys only have 8 episodes. Like, what are you doing?
And this is why I feel like it's hard to sometimes judge these things so early, because and this, you'll see a lot of weird things happen in next episode where you get angry and it's like they fix it.
Yeah.
But it's like I said, I think it's like they deliberately do this to the book readers just to screw with their heads. Our
Yeah.
heads. I think they were doing things just to screw with our heads for a while, and then they fix it towards the end of the episode. And it was very similar to this Rand thing with meeting Logain. That doesn't happen for a very long time in the books, but like I said, I was okay now that I knew that he had an actual motivation for being in this predicament. I I even wrote a little note. I was like, nice nod to a Alondra with the fireworks, even though we never see her. My thought here is where they're going to go. I think there is going to be a part where Min and Matt might meet up with Rand, and then they find out about the hunt for the horn somehow. They use portal stones to get there. This is where Selene starts coaxing him to use his power more.
Yeah.
Maybe they find Huron. They hire Huron to sniff out the Shinarans. That's kind of how I'm
hoping.
That's kind of what I'm hoping. Kind of a prediction, because we got to get Matt and Rand. They have to be. I know, unless he's going to go to the Stone of Tyr by the end of the season, I don't know.
I mean, the big thing is that they need to get Matt to the horn. That is a major
I don't know.
thing.
Is it going to be Matt who blows the horn?
I hope so, because at this point, if they're bringing in Elias, you have to hope that they're going to be establishing Perrin's storyline.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And it needs to be Matt.
And I agree. And I think they plan to do that. I like to hope they are, because in the season 1, they had Matt start the old Maetherium song, which shows his connections to the older world. So that's kind of his connection to the thing. I do believe they are going to somehow get Matt together with Rand. Maybe they'll hire Huron. Maybe they'll use a portal stone to get to the Toman head quickly. That's where that whole, maybe a little more of those scenes with Selene. There's the golem creature, I think, that comes into play there as well, into these other worlds. I'll be curious if they add those scenes.
And the hopes aren't high.
That's all I had for like what I hope for the future of this season. But I really hope they get everybody together there.
I think Daniel's right. I think they're going to have to get everyone to Falma.
Yeah.
At least that's my hope, because I understand that when you have 14 books and you've got 8 seasons planned, or whatever it is that they've got planned, that you're going to have to make concessions and things are going to have to get cut. Fine. The books themselves, specifically if we're looking at The Great Hunt and The Dragon Reborn, I think that The Great Hunt is a vastly better book. And the story itself is so good. Like, you can take elements of things in The Dragon Reborn, but realistically, not a whole lot happens in that book until the very, very end. So you should be primarily focusing on The Great Hunt for this season, but give people the background fodder to understand why the horn is important, what's going on with Rand, which hopefully we now will start to maybe get a little bit more context for with the conversations with him and Logain. But there needs to be less time at the tower, and there needs to be more time attributed to people that aren't getting the proper story development that they need. Because at this point, if someone were to say to me, who do you think is the main character of the show? I'd say it's Moiraine. And it should not be Moiraine. Moiraine is barely in The Great Hunt and is not very prominent in The Dragon Reborn.
Well, I mean, look at the poster. Moiraine's still front and center.
Central character.
Rand is kind of in the back.
Yeah, I don't get it.
They establish who the Dragon Reborn is right now. So we can take the focus off the girls now, and we can get back into our 3 boys a little more, I think. Yeah. And I apologize. I hate to do this during live discussion, but I have to get something really quick.
You're fine. But yes, I agree, Daniel. I don't know how they're going to get Rand there. I really don't know. I'm wondering if someone's going to reach out to him in some weird way, shape, or form. If maybe Celine convinces him to go for some weird reason. I don't really know. But I would love to do the Otherworld scenes because I thought the Otherworld scenes were so, so good in the book. Honestly, there's so many good scenes in The Great Hunt that it would be so nice to see those come to fruition. But my hopes personally aren't that high. That's the thing. That's a really good question. What's going to happen after first? Because there's yep. There is a big gap, but my thought, what I was saying to Chris, is that we're going to get Maureen's POV and what was going on with her after in that kind of space and void. So I think she'll still be in it.
So yeah, I'm hoping this is kind of like the last major time we get a lot of the Moraine. I don't know if I caught at the end of the year what you were saying here, but I think we are going to start seeing. I have hopes that we're going to start seeing more of the main 5 characters. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah,
the girls are fine. I mean, you obviously can tell that the next episode is
Nynaeve heavy.
Yeah, I think you'll like it.
So if it's like the test in the books, I thought the test scene was well done in the book. So if we're akin to that, I will probably like it. It does remind me of the Kobayashi Maru from Star Trek, but that's fine. I have no idea for the Forsaken. It'll be interesting to see if that's what they do.
Yeah. We were talking about the Forsaken, I think last couple episodes, kind of like who's going to be in there, who's probably going to get cut.
Yeah.
Because I do think they are going to cut some of the less used.
Yeah.
Forsaken.
I agree.
More on the ones that are at least last more towards the end.
Yes.
The ending books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, we will be covering episode 3 on Sunday. Will be 7 Eastern, 8 Eastern. What are you thinking?
We can do it 7. So
okay. Our normal time, typically from what we had been doing for the last few weeks. Yeah. And then next week we will start doing 1 episode as they are released, and we'll do it on the Friday again. So hopefully people have a little bit of time, especially if they drop it on Thursday night. But thank you all for tuning in to our first of season 2 episodes. If you are rewatching it, please let us know down below what you thought of the first 2 episodes and what your hopes are going forward. Thank you to everyone that joined us. This was a fun conversation. I am hoping that we will have more positive things to say in the next few episodes.
And yeah,
that's my hope.
And like I said, I am definitely trying to pull like these really cool moments that the show does have. Yeah. I'm okay with, and I'm totally, as much of the book lover I am of these books, I don't mind changes to the books, because I do think, especially when we talk about female characters and how Robert Jordan wrote some of the female characters, I do think there needs to be some changes, at least to differentiate the female characters, because a lot.
I agree, very much so. Give them unique personalities and personalities to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to find great things about the show, because I do want it to continue. I want them to be able to complete the show and not cancel, or something like that.
Well, guys, once again, thank you all so much. We will see you on Sunday. Hope to see you then. But everyone have a good night and enjoy the episodes if you can.
Find something.
Yes. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.